Israelis today waking up to a deeply divided nation, a country more divided potentially than at any other point in its 75-year history. This is what the front page of all of Israel's major Hebrew newspapers look like today. It's all black, and at the very bottom it says a dark day for Israeli democracy. And that is how many of the protesters are feeling. We spoke yesterday with a woman who was demonstrating outside of Israel's parliament. She had tears in her eyes and said she does not know what she is going to tell her children about their country's future. A lot of concern today about what the future holds for Palestinians living in the occupied West Bank, for the rights of minorities and the LGBTQ community, for women, and also for secular Israel. To give you a sense of what they're concerned about, just this morning, one of Netanyahu's religious allies has introduced a bill that would treat religious studying of the Torah, on par with national military service. Now, it's not clear if that bill is actually going to go anywhere, but it gives you a sense of the kind of future that some of Netanyahu's allies want to create and what so many Israelis are afraid of. There is, of course, another side to this. Netanyahu would tell you that these reforms were necessary to curb the power of unelected judges who for too long had been blocking the will of Israel's more conservative, more religious majority. Netanyahu speaking to the nation last night, appealing for unity. But the protests continue. We saw very large demonstrations overnight, protesters blocking major highways, police using water cannon to try to dislodge them. The doctors are on strike today. It is basically impossible to get anything other than emergency medical treatment from doctors in Israel today. And this morning, the Bar Association has petitioned the Supreme Court to strike down this bill, which would weaken the Supreme Court. Now, if the judges decide to do that, we are in uncharted constitutional waters. Nobody from Netanyahu to constitutional scholars to the protesters on the street can tell you what happens next. There are also major questions hanging over the institution that is supposed to be above politics in this country. That is the Israeli military. Thousands of Israeli military reservists have said they will stop showing up for duty in protest at this legislation. That is going to have a particularly severe effect on the Air Force, which is flying almost nightly missions over Syria, over Gaza, over other fronts. In some squadrons, half of the pilots are reservists. Many of the most experienced fighter pilots are reservists rather than active duty. The chief of the Israeli military has said this divisive debate in the political realm has spilled over to the military, that there are deep cracks, and he is doing his best to hold the military together.